We're in an interesting age here for pop culture, an era where at least theoretically dreams come true. If you'd gone back in time about 15 years and asked me what my most wild and fanciful dreams for movies and TV shows were, the sky's the limit in terms of likelihood for them to actually happen, my answers probably would have been a screen adaptation of A Song of Ice and Fire, for Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence to return in a follow-up to The Karate Kid, and for Willow Ufgood to return in a follow-up to 1988's Willow. Well, cut to 2022 and now all of those things exist. The first one, excellent for a time, if not for its duration, but now undeniably one of the most popular IPs in the world. The second, shockingly great so far, fingers crossed it never lets me down, and the third, well, it remains to be seen. I've watched Willow, I don't know, about 7,000 times, so expectations are high. And I have misgivings about Disney and Lucasfilm's work in recent years. To describe my feelings on the Star Wars sequel trilogy as mixed would be generous. So however excited I am about the return of the Willowverse, it's married to a fair bit of nervousness. Now right away this series does have something in common with the Star Wars sequel trilogy, namely that it's decanonizing and ignoring follow-up novels to the original film. Though granted, in this case it's not decanonizing an entire spin-off universe of hundreds of pieces of media, but just 3 novels, the Chronicles of the Shadow War trilogy by Chris Claremont and George Lucas himself. Now as a Willow fan, I'm not exactly stamping my feet and raging about this, Lucas canon or no. The novels are interesting, I'll say. The best thing they have going for them is deepening and expanding the character of Elora Danan, who by the second book, Shadow Dawn, eclipses Willow himself as the protagonist, and who has a fine arc from spoiled, bratty princess to self-sacrificing warrior savior. But I'll dedicate future videos to those novels. Just here I'll mention that spoiler alert for the second chapter of a 26-year-old book, almost immediately into Shadow Moon, the first book of the trilogy, Tir Asleen is destroyed and Mad Mardigan and Sorsha are killed in a magical cataclysm, after which Willow changes his name to Thorn Drumheller, by which he is exclusively referred to for the duration of the trilogy, and becomes an angsty dark warlock wandering the earth for revenge. To say that this isn't what I wanted from a Willow follow-up as a lover of the movie would be an understatement, on par with saying that I don't want a blowjob to end with my dick being bitten off. So in that respect, this Disney Plus series is starting ahead. Willow at least appears to still be named Willow, and Sorsha very much alive. What they do with Mad Mardigan remains to be seen. Who knows if they got a Top Gun Maverick-style Kilmer cameo or not. But let's wrap up this preamble and just get to kind of a walkthrough or analysis of this latest trailer for Disney Plus's Willow, wrapping things up with some final thoughts. Blue misty beach.
You think you know what is real and what isn't.
These young, beautiful people be macking in the grassy meadow, looking like Majora's Mask and shit. Dark tower. City getting swept up in a dust storm. Now, here's interesting note number 1. This mummy dust face situation appears to be none other than Bavmorda, which makes sense. Keep in mind, Bavmorda was not truly killed. She was exiled to the 13th night, which was meant to trap Elora Danan's soul so she couldn't be reincarnated. Bavmorda could well be reaching out magically from the 13th night, and indeed a line later in the trailer makes me think that's the case. Who knows if they actually got Jean Marsh back to put in a cameo as Bavmorda. She's 88 years old and hasn't acted in 8 years according to IMDb. Though I hope if she's playing a role in the plot they at least rolled a microphone up to her house to do some voice work, but we'll see. Bad magic's going down, Sorsha having a dream about it all, seeming to have aged the proper 35-ish years since the original film, which I'll discuss more in a second. Warwick Davis hero shot. Love it. Now we see here that it looks like we're not going to be starting with Willow and having him assemble the party, so to speak. Here we can see the party already assembled and going to seek out Willow. Hard to say from these couple of shots if this is actually supposed to be Nelwyn Valley from the first film or not, or if Willow has since relocated. The stone hut here does look Nelwyn Valley-ish, but Willow could have just built a similar home elsewhere. So Willow says to this girl, I haven't looked up any character names, that she reminds him of her mother, which means either 1, this is Elora Danan, which, going back to my previous point, this chick doesn't look 35 years old to me, so that seems off. Or 2, and I'm leaning towards this as more likely, this is a new biological child of Sorsha and Mad Mardigan. This is definitely supposed to be Tir Asleen, looking good. I don't know what the budget of this show was, I'm assuming a fraction of the Rings of Power, but it doesn't look like some Legend of the Seeker, Shannara Chronicles ass Diet Coke budget fantasy either. Now this guy here fighting Sorsha and her daughter, I'm getting the vibe this isn't our big bad, not our main villain, but seems way too distinct and fancy a fighting style with these whips and whatnot to be just a miscellaneous mook. Must be a major henchman. I'm assuming that the voiceover is from Sorsha's daughter about her brother being abducted, so what I'm getting here is these two are Mad Mardigan and Sorsha's kids, ergo Bavmorda's grandkids. Maybe twins, and this one's girlfriend is the blonde girl in the crew. And I do believe that is Vonkar there, the best warrior in Nelwyn Valley, so I'd assume from his appearance that this is supposed to be Nelwyn Valley. This girl hugging Willow appears to be younger, so I'm not thinking that's Willow's wife Kaya. I'm going to assume that's his daughter Mims. Presumably not the same actress, but I don't know, anything's possible.
We must go.
We're going through mystical barriers, we're going to mystical forests. I'm gonna guess by Rule's appearance here, possibly Shalindria's forest where the brownies live. Great that they got Kevin Pollak back as Rule. Interesting fact about the Chronicles of the Shadow War sequel book trilogy I mentioned. After Elora Danan and Willow, the movie character with the biggest role in the plot is none other than Rule, I shit you not. Although in that story he, like Willow himself, has become a bit more grizzled and cynical, and is more of a warrior. This show's approach seems to be somewhat the opposite.
Our true enemy is still out there.
Trio of bad guys here. I think that's the whip guy who fought Sorsha on the left there. Main guy in the middle can't keep his weird sexual fetishes to himself, I see. Again, I'm going to guess these are all henchmen, not the main villain, but interesting that none appear to be human beings, unlike most of Bavmorda's troops, save the Death Dogs, who we don't see any of in this trailer. The woods? You can't have a fantasy series without tons of scenes set in the woods. It's illegal. Got some goofy sex jokes, which is actually quite in keeping with the original film.
Wanna breed? Tempting, but no.
So that's good. No info really about who this girl is, by the way. Everyone else in the trailer we can at least discern a sliver of info on, but her, nothing really.
When I was a kid.
Okay, so this guy's gonna end up being Willow's magic apprentice, I assume. And here we have kind of a Mines of Moria situation. Again, this doesn't look massively Rings of Power expensive, but it looks really solid for a fantasy TV show, about on par with what most fantasy films have been able to show off through most of the medium's history. No complaints on the look of things here, except maybe some of it looks a bit too, I don't know, clean maybe? Kind of like some of the Star Wars prequels did compared to the original trilogy. Like, I miss the old film grain 80s sort of look, but, you know, that's mostly nitpicking for now. At least until we see a little more things. Flamethrower Willow. So this is good because it shows that Willow is maybe not quite Finn Rizal, Bavmorda tier god powers. He still has to supplement his magic with a certain amount of science and engineering and physical grit. Fighting on the water, and trolls upright and wearing clothes, which is interesting. They were just naked, hunched over beasts in the original film. I wonder if they're just going to be evil henchmen, or if we might see a slightly more intelligent or sympathetic side of them, which is actually something that did happen in the novels. Elora Danan made friends with the troll by being nice to its baby and was allowed to peacefully share its cave for the night. Action montage, horses, bows and arrows, bad guys being evil with black smoke and glowing eyes. Willow's got a magic staff, and nice, this beach magic duel looks very visually cool, actually getting some interesting cinematography here. I think we can discern from the people sitting in the back that this is training, not a battle to the death. Who's this beard Nelwyn? Is that Willow? Hard to tell. Anyway, this guy has a fish friend, and oh man, for a Willow fanboy caked in nostalgia, this is kind of the money shot here. It's just a shame we couldn't have had Mad Mardigan in the shot somehow, though I know he wasn't in this scene. Now I wonder if by them walking through the mist here, if they are actually literally in the same spot, outside Bavmorda's sanctum in the castle of Nockmaar. That would actually be funny if that's where the climax of the season, or series, if this is a mini-series, I don't know, takes place, as that is in fact also where the climactic sequence of Shadow Star, the third and final of the Shadow War novels, takes place. It would be funny if there's 3 Willow stories, the film, the now non-canon book trilogy, and now this show, and they all culminate in the same damn room. Show off everyone, more magic beach training, Willow up good, and that's that. So here's what I'm guessing or deriving from this trailer. Sorsha and Mad Mardigan have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. The boy gets kidnapped by these assorted, dark, creepy henchmen who I'm guessing are following the orders of Bav Morda, telephoning in from the 13th night. I'm assuming as much because at the end of the trailer we hear the bad guy say, "How will you defeat us?"
How will you defeat us?
To which Willow responds, "Same as last time."
Same as last time.
So that seems to indicate that he is indeed fighting the same general faction of villains. So anyway, the daughter goes to draft Willow for the rescue mission on behalf of his old friends. He goes to Tir Asleen to get the mission from Sorsha, then sets out with this party here. I'm sure there'll be a twist or two beyond that, but that gets us started. I think what we see so far looks good visually. Like I said, maybe a bit antiseptic at points, but to be honest, almost all TV shows these days are to some extent, so whatever. And with stuff like Vonkar and Rule coming back, it looks like they've tried to dig back into the lore in respectful ways, at least respectful to the original film, less so to George Lucas's vision after the original film, because like I said, this plainly has nothing to do with Lucas's story for the novels. But I wasn't necessarily head over heels thrilled with those novels' story developments either, so I'm not too upset. The big question mark would be if this girl is too young to be Elora Danan, and she clearly is unless they're trying to tweak timelines and say that only 20 or 25 years have passed. But if this is a new child, then where is Elora Danan, and what is she doing now, and how does she play into things? I guess they could just ignore and sidestep that, but she is kind of to some extent who the entire plot of the original film is really about, even more than Willow himself, so it would be a glaring omission. So I have to assume she'll come into the plot somehow, in some way, even if it's as late as the season finale, although I'd assume it'll be a wildly divergent version than the Elora we spend time with in the Shadow Wars novels. So mark me down as cautiously excited. Lucasfilm and Disney have screwed us over a few times in recent years, I think it's not too unfair to say, but a Willow sequel is something I've dreamed of for like, I don't know, 30, 32 years now. So I'm obviously erring more on the excited side of cautiously excited, at least for now. So long as Warwick Davis was up for it, it just would have been too much of a missed opportunity to have him not play Willow Ufgood again at some point, and I'm glad they got the green light to go for it. And with that, I guess we'll sign off on talking about this show until November 30th. So I'll see you then.